Hello everyone, it's May here with Cottage Market, and before I begin, I want to thank those of you who are supporting me on Coffee. Your membership just truly means the most to me. Your support, your encouragement, it just fills my heart with so much joy to know that I have beautiful friends like you in my life. So I'm very blessed to have you, and I'm very thankful that you believe in me enough that you're supporting me in this new journey. So again, from the bottom of my heart and from my family, I want to thank you for that. All right, so now that I have said that, because you guys are just so meaningful, for those of you who are following me on Coffee, I am doing a series of start to finish how to make a scrapbook album, from the cover to the hinge to the pages to the flips and the doohickeys and all that. But before we do that, I want to do this video to share with you some of the tools that I use whenever I'm making an album, and perhaps if you don't have them, you can gather some supplies before we begin this journey, because starting this week we're going to be going into that journey, that rabbit hole of making your very own album. So the first important thing that I tend to gravitate towards is fabric tack. And I know there's a lot of glues out there, but this is my favorite go-to glue that I've been using like forever, because it allows me to shift things around if I need to. Once I place it in with any other glue, if it's there, it's there. And sometimes those glues will work. But this one allows me to kind of shift it around, move it a little, give it a little bit of movement if it's wonky or if it's displaced. And so I love that for that reason. But it doesn't warp my paper. And I know that a lot of people said that it starts to seep out. What I do to prevent that is, as soon as I use it, I put the cap back on, and that way it's not over spilling or anything like that. If it starts to get thick, I dilute it a little bit with acetone, because this is acetone based. So if you have your nails, that's one warning. If your nails are really pretty done, this will help remove some of that nail polish. It does do that. Now I do use what do you call those things in my Color Street? So it doesn't remove it, thankfully. It doesn't. But if you have regular nail polish, it will remove it, because it is acetone based, but it doesn't warp your paper. The other glue that I tend to use is Barely Art Glue. This is another one of those glues that doesn't warp your paper, and I have tried other glues, not to mention the one that everyone loves so much. But I prefer this one because it does not warp. I have a nice fine tip point here. And again, the most important thing is, the worst thing that you could ever have is glue that warps your work. You don't want something that's going to warp it. So this one is my go-to along with this one. Okay. Now, score tape. Now, I like Sue Wang score tape. I've been using it forever. I prefer to spend a lot of money on it because I know it will last a long time. It's one of those things that it's very good to use. Now, if it's a prototype, I will use the cheap one from Dollar Tree, and that was a tip that was given to me by Vanessa, so thank you, Vanessa, because for years when I was making prototypes, I would use the expensive stuff and it'd end up in the trash. So that was a waste of, product. But Vanessa told me about a year or so ago to use the Dollar Tree one. So that's what I use if I'm, don't want to use the expensive stuff. But I do love this one. I will not use anything else when I'm making the actual product. Other things, bone folders. We have your traditional bone folder, and we have the silicone bone folder. I prefer the silicone because it really gets in there. It doesn't break your paper. It just does the job nicely. Okay, so when we're burnishing, folding, creasing, this is it right here. This is the deal, the real deal. And I love this. It makes a huge difference as opposed to this one. It's a lot stiff and hard, and this one just has that, I don't know, it just something about it. It gets into those creases really nicely. Since you're using glue, when you have seepage, I highly recommend, as soon as it seeps, clean it with a rubber eraser. Dollar Tree, this is where I used to get it. I don't know, I haven't seen it on our Dollar Tree. That's why I haven't replaced these, but I typically just come in and just kind of clean it up a little bit. But you can't live without a rubber eraser, you know. We can't live without it. All right, for mitering your edges or your corners, you can use a traditional way, which is to butt it up to the corner and just miter it with some scissors, but that was how we did it back in the day. But me, typically, I love these mitering tools. I got this one from Amazon, and I love it. It's metal, and you just butt it up, and you can just trim, like if it was in the corner like that, trim it off, and you have some perfectly, you know, clean edges. This one here, I made it when I had my laser machine, and I loved it. I just can't, you know, I don't have my laser machine, so I can't share that with you guys, but that's one that I designed a couple years ago. What else? They do have these like this, but this is like that 3D printer stuff, so you have to be really cautious, especially when you're trimming. It starts to get in there. I don't like that. Yeah. So you need an X-Acto knife also. I prefer this retractable one as opposed to the traditional, you know, this one that you get from, that you replace those blades. Those are wonky, and then you're constantly tightening that up. I don't like dealing with that. So retractable, perfect way to go. Okay, and then you need a stylus because you're going to be creasing on your scoreboard, and this is important that you have a stylus. And I like this one here, the rounder, bigger one, as opposed to the little one. This one tends to break. I don't like that. You need closures. If you're making closures, you need magnets. I like these magnets. I buy them from Amazon, and they're strong magnets that I use. You can also use twine. You can use ribbon. And right now, Hobby Lobby has their ribbon at 40%. So now till Saturday, ribbon is 40%. Anything that is Paper Studio also is 40%. So speaking of paper, when it comes to the pages, you want something that is strong and sturdy. 80 to 110 pounds is good for your pages. That makes the pages sturdy. That makes it strong, sturdy pages. Me personally, when I'm doing the spine and the cover, I like to use 80 pound weight, because I find that when it's the really, really hard 110 pound weight for the cover, I think, me personally, it starts to crack. But of course, everyone's different. You also want to make sure it's acid-free linen. So I do like the Hobby Lobby cardstock. This one here is about, I think this is like a 65 pound cardstock, and this one's a little bit thicker. But me personally, when I'm making my chipboard album, I like to go with the 80 pound. I think it works better for me. And then we're going into chipboard. Now you want a really thick, sturdy chipboard. You don't want one that's flimsy and that it's not durable. This is the kind that I like to use. You don't want cereal boxes. That is flimsy. That will not last you a long time. That'll definitely not last. Don't use cereal boxes. Unless you're going to double it up, I will not use it. If you're going to use something like this because you don't have chipboard, then yes, okay, double it up. And use really good glue to double it up. Paper trimmers, I recommend this one here. I got this when I had the store. It's a Tim Holt Tonic Studio one. I love it. I love it so much. I mean, I really do. And luckily I was able to get the blades for the other one that I have similar to this that he came out afterwards. My daughter has it. But the blades fit perfectly on it. Extends out. Measurement is perfect. Trimmers are very important, and you really want a trimmer that you can rely on, that it's accurate. I love this one because it has the 1/16, it has the 1/8, so that's important, especially when you're doing measurements. And it also has centimeters. And I also like that it has these little notches, and so you can line up things with these notches when you're cutting and trimming, and it makes it so much easier. Now, one suggestion I have is get a blade if you can afford to have two. Normally the packages have two, but make sure you mark one that is for chipboard and one that is for paper. If you're going to be cutting, you can't, and it's a lot, and it's happened to me a lot, if you're going to cut chipboard and cardstock, make sure that if you do use the one blade, have like an emery board, and this is a Dollar Tree, inexpensive, and kind of buff out those edges so you don't have like, you know, rough edges on your pages. That's just a tidbit that works for me whenever I can't afford to go get another blade. The other thing you can do is take a piece of aluminum foil, that it's the heavy aluminum foil, and kind of run it a couple times to kind of sharpen the blades. So that's that. And then, you know, I am a fanatic of my scoreboard. I love my scoreboard. I don't believe in, you know, just folding. No, I have to have a scoreboard. And this one came, this is a Stampin' Up! That I've had. It came with a little stylus, but the Martha Stewart one is a good one. Score Pal is good, and I have it. I just tend to like this one because it has the 1/8 inch, and I do have right here. And it does have, if you're unable to read a ruler, this has it up on top. It makes it easier. I don't know. I don't use it typically that much, but you know, I guess I should. I mean, it's a really good one, and I should use it. But I use this one. I don't know why. But the other thing, let's see, ruler, very important. You have a ruler. I've had this one from Tim Holtz. It's my handy dandy ruler. It's very important you have a ruler to mark with, and always have pencil handy, because we're always making little marks and stuff like that. If you're designing, make sure you have a notepad so you can write down the exact measurements, or you know, whatever notes you need to take. Ink pads, my favorite has always been Vintage Photos and Walnut Stain, but I also gravitate towards Tea Dye and Rusty Hinge and Espresso. My Vintage Photos and Walnut Stain, Carla's borrowing it because she's making something. So again, those are just some of the things that I like. And I use a self-healing mat to cut when I'm trimming the edges. If you happen to make any boo-boos, because we do make boo-boos, I'm so notorious, and since I have menopause brain, I make a lot of boo-boos, and that just goes with the territory of being menopausal. So this undo is a miracle worker. It removes the adhesive tackiness so that you can lift it up carefully, and if you need to replace it, you can. You need this. In fact, I've used it so much I need to get another bottle. But that's a friendly, handy dandy thing to do. I also use often some fabric binding, and it's really good for covering your albums. But with this, you need also like glue, but it's really good. It's very, very good for making your albums. I've used leather for covering. Again, that's something that is very handy to have. I also use clips, and I get my clips from Dollar Tree. As you guys know, I love Dollar Tree for these kind of things because it's so affordable. But I get these inexpensive clips from Dollar Tree. And what else? Punches. You need punches. That's very important to have. Whatever punch you have, because you know we're always making several cuts, whether we're doing a half a moon or a semi-circle cutout. Your punch boards. Let's see. You can use brushes. These are brushes that you can also get from Dollar Tree for your inks. You can use that. You can use daubers. You can use these things that you can, you know, you have the finger daubers, and then you have these that you can use for inking. I think that's about some of my favorite tools that I use. Also, if you're trimming, a metal ruler is very handy. It helps so that you're not tearing into your nice Tim Holtz, although Tim Holtz does have a metal edge on that one. I always just don't use it too much. You need scissors. Scissors, it's so important, and I am a collector of scissors. For fussy cutting, you want small little things. I'm not a fan of the Tim Holtz ones, and I think it's because of that serrated edge. I'm not a fan of it. This is an old one I have from Stampin' Up. I like it, cuts really well, but for fussy cutting or something like that, I do have to use something small like this, or perhaps like this one. Like I said, I'm a fan of scissors, so yeah, I have scissors everywhere. So I think that is about all that I have. If there's something that you prefer, comment below. Now I have used masking tape to attach my spine, and that works really good. It really, really does. But for this series that we're doing, we're not going to do this technique. We're going to do another technique, and you guys just have to follow along with the journey. I will be providing a PDF at the end of everything, because this is going to be winging it. I'm going to start it from scratch with you guys, and so as I'm building it, you're getting, you know, the real deal, the raw deal of how I go from A to B and down to CD. So yeah, I think that's it. And if you're going to be attaching say a charm on the spine, then you'll need a crocodile, and you will need some eyelets. Eyelets are very important to have, especially if you want to add tags or anything like that. I've picked these up from Amazon, and I think this is the 3/16 one. But that's also important. Understanding your crocodile is important, because you got to make sure you know how to understand it as far as putting it together when you're cramping down. And we'll discuss that as we get through. I think that's pretty much all that I have. I will be loading part 1 of the series of making a scrapbook album from A to finish in our coffee membership group, and also in the schoolhouse. I'll be using our collection Bunny Dreams and Baby Things to create this album, and I hope you guys love it, and I hope that you join me for this new adventure. And if you have any questions as we go through, just feel free to send me a message. And again, I want to thank my members who are supporting me. Big shout outs to you guys, Vanessa, Penny, you guys are amazing, Lourdes. You guys are just amazing, and I really, really, really appreciate everything you guys do for me. The love, the support is amazing. So back at you. Love you guys. Till next time. Bye.